Welcome, everybody. Nice to have you back. This time, it's been a while since we've been here, hasn't it? Did y'all get paid?
No, we didn't. We need another check.
This time, I'll ask City Clerk Beth Davis to please call the roll.
Commissioner Pam Smithroyd.
Here.
Commissioner Sharon Neesmith.
Here.
Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Caslen.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here. Thank you. If you'll please stand if you're able, we'll have the invocation and the pledge by Commissioner Pam Smithroyd.
Would you please bow your heads and pray with me? Father God, we pray for our world. We pray for peace and hope to abound. Many people are afflicted by natural disasters, floods, droughts, and forest fires, by conflict, poverty, and the aftermath of the global pandemic. In challenging times such as these, help us to turn to you as our source of strength and hope. Merciful Lord, we ask for your peace to be with all of those who are suffering from griefs and hardships and all kinds of trials. We pray that they will come to know your comfort and provision. And Lord, I ask that you give us, the City Commission, the wisdom to make the right decisions in all that we do. I pray for our servicemen and women and our first responders, wherever they may be. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a couple of presentations, retirement recognitions, effective October 31st, 2023. Where's the quitter? Where is she? There she is over there. All right. It's Pamela Canary. Pamela started her career with the City of Owensboro in June of 2012 as the city's purchasing agent. She brought a wealth of knowledge in state model procurement, federal purchasing, and programs, as well as contract administration. She served as a member of the Kentucky Public Procurement Association board and various committees. Other agencies within the state would often contact her for guidance and advice with purchasing issues. In 2018, Pamela accepted the position of transit manager, where she's been a friendly face to riders and others that visit the transit station. Her grant work has not gone unnoticed. While in the role of transit manager, the city obtained an electric bus, installed additional bus shelters, as well as added solar-powered lights to all bus shelters. She's also assisted in overseeing and implementing changes in our bus routes. Thank you, Pamela, for your dedication to the City of Owensboro. You have served the city with integrity and a strong work ethic. Best of luck on your future endeavors. So, Pamela, I have a little thank you.
Yeah, Nate usually backs out.
Certificate of Outstanding Service, Pamela Canary, City of Owensboro here recognizes and extends its grateful appreciation for your outstanding service, faithfully rendered to Owensboro, employed by the City of Owensboro.
make it really quick. I'd just like to say thank you for all the opportunities and wonderful memories. It's been a pleasure, and I'll miss everyone. But on to the next chapter. For now, I'm going to take care of my family. It is. But thank you. I mean that.
Thank you very much. And the next retirement, I don't believe Ms. Daughtry is here. Is that correct? All right. Anita Daughtry, unable to attend. Is that what that means? Okay. Anita began her career as a records clerk with the Owensboro Police Department on February the 27th, 2017. During the implementation of new record system, Anita played a vital role in testing the product for errors and providing feedback. She also assisted in setting up reports and modules and formatting of the new system. Anita learned every task of the records department and was able to train others. Anita's impact in the records department will be highly missed. Well, she was unable to attend. We have a little certificate, so let's give her a round of applause. Next item on the agenda, Teresa Jackson, Elsa Fisher, Barry Dunn Consultants. You got the mic.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and I don't just say that. As we were preparing to come back to Owensboro, we were sending lots of messages over the weekend about where we were going to eat and where we're going to go for walks. I mean, it is a wonderful community. And Elsa actually got a couple miles in today, so I'm going to have to catch up tomorrow. So today we're here to provide you with an update on our progress related to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. My name is Teresa Jackson, and this is Elsa Fisher, who is joining me. We'll both be presenting different aspects this afternoon, and we work for a firm called Barry Dunn. We have some other subs who are involved in the project, and so we'll reference them as we're going through today's presentation. And I see lots of familiar faces up there. I hope you remember the nice conversations we had. Mayor Watson, we were by phone, and then several of us were in person, which was fantastic. So this afternoon, we are going to provide you some details related to the operational analysis, the survey findings, the recreation assessment, the inventory and benchmarking and level of service work that we conducted. And then finally, we want to open it up to conversation. So at this juncture of the planning effort, this is really about current conditions. We did a similar presentation with the staff today, and our goal is to really bring everyone together on the same page about what we've learned so far about your community and your department. And what this does is it really helps us to develop a vision for the future. So when we sit down and meet with staff tomorrow, we're going to be talking about opportunities, taking these findings and saying, okay, now that we have this information, this data, and we know where we're at, what are the opportunities for the future, and how do we prioritize those opportunities? So to begin with, the operation as assessment. So we really took a hard look at your FTE count, your full-time equivalent employee. And what's key about this analysis is that we recognize it's not just the full-time employees that you have here in Owensboro, in the Department of Parks and Recreation. You also have temp support, and you have individuals in Public Works who are supporting your park system, and you also have those part-time seasonal employees, the non-full-time. So the National Parks and Recreation Association tracks operating budgets, tracks CIPs, all kinds of different metrics, including FTEs. There's over 1,100 agencies that self-report into the National Park and Rec Association. And so we can take a look at that data, and we can isolate communities that are 50 to 99,000 and identify what do similar sized agencies, what do their FTEs look like when you factor in both the parks and the recreation side. And so when we take a look at that, we find that agencies of similar size typically have around 75 FTEs. When we take a look at Owensboro and we factor in those temps, we factor in Public Works and what the department has, we see 58 FTEs. So we see a variance there. Now, that is a broad range of that 50 to 99,000, right? You've just crossed that threshold. So another way to take a look at it is how many FTEs are serving 10,000 residents. And the typical is around 11. And here in Owensboro, you're at 9.6. So we see a variance there as well. Another thing to highlight is since the last planning effort in 2012, a lot has changed. The city has grown, the department has taken on new responsibilities, and so we want to take that into account as we're looking at those FTEs. When we go back to 2012 and we say, okay, how many FTEs full-time specifically were there? There was 16, and that's the same as today. Now, over the course of those 10 years, there was valleys. It fluctuated between 14 and 16 over the years. But today you sit at 16, and you can see, especially in that maintenance category, there are a number of tasks that have transitioned over to the recreation side of the department. And then related to facility management, lots of new facilities have opened, but that FTE count has stayed the same over the years. And that's just a key aspect. No decisions or recommendations have been made at this point. This is just part of our fact-finding and sharing. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Elsa, and Elsa's going to talk about the survey findings as well as the recreation assessment, and then I'll be back to talk about level of service.
Good evening, everybody. So if you recall, part of the project involved a statistically valid survey, and that was administered through a sub RCA, RRC. I always get that wrong, RRC. And that was mailed to a random sample in the spring, and 284 surveys were completed. And in addition to the statistically valid survey, there was also an option for residents to participate in the survey. And you'll see in the results that we've kept those responses separate. So there's the statistically valid survey and then the open survey. So what did we learn from the survey? First of all, overall satisfaction is very, very high. And you can see on the park side, the overall score for the statistically valid survey was 4.1 out of 5. And for programs, it was 3.4, and we like to see a score of 3 or higher. So a very high level of satisfaction in Owensboro for both the parks and open spaces and the programs that the department is providing. One of the other questions asked, what type of improvements would you like to see over the next 5 to 10 years? And in this response, the highest was trails, and that's very, very common. People want to see more trails. They also want to see more connectivity, and they also want to see more open space. So those are the things that ranked very, very high when asked about what improvements people would like to see when it comes to facilities and amenities. In terms of programs and services, people would like to see more senior programs, more teen and youth programs, and more fitness, wellness, and health programs. So those are the things that resonated, that rose to the top with the statistically valid survey. There was another question that was asked, if you were given $100, how would you divide that up in $5 increments with the most important things that you would like to see improved? And trails and pathways was at the top again for the statistically valid survey, followed by the green belt, followed by pickleball. And we know pickleball's, there's a lot of players in the community that are very interested in pickleball. And you can see on the open survey that the pickleball players certainly participated and made it known that that was a high priority for them when it comes to making improvements. The next question that I wanted to highlight was about what could the department do that would increase usage for you? So what sort of things could be done that would make you participate more? And the number one item was increased communication about offerings. So really at the top of people's mind is they wanted to learn more. They wanted more ways to understand what was offered and how they could get involved. And then the next item was additional facilities, followed by additional lighting, and that kind of links to the improved safety and security, which I believe is number 5. So those are the items on the statistically valid survey that people felt were important that would potentially increase their usage.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Did they have any suggestions on improved communications about offerings? I mean, we're social media to death.
Say that again?
We're social media to death. Did they give you any suggestions on improved communication about offerings?
That wasn't, they did?
So the survey itself had somewhere around 30 questions, and so we pulled some highlights for today's conversation. There is a follow-up question to this one that says, how do you like to be communicated with? And we ask about the website versus all the different media outlets. And I don't have it committed to memory, but we have that data.
Okay, thank you.
So the next section I want to go into is the recreation assessment. So this is looking at recreation programming and offerings. And we got data from the staff, we met with the staff, we did a SWOT with them, what's working, what's not working, what are some opportunities. So on this graphic, on the left side, this is the programs that are offered that require pre-registration. So you can see that 54% of the programs offered were ice related, followed by 30% in aquatics, and then sports and camps at 7% and golf at 2%. So left side is what was offered. And again, these are programs that require registration, not drop-in golf, not all the tournaments that you host. This is just programs that require registration. Then the right side are the people who participated, the programs that people participated in. So you can see sports is highest there at 48%, followed by ice, and then camps and aquatics. So this just gives you an idea of, you know, what's been offered and then what has been participated in relation to the key program areas that your department provides. So another thing we like to look at is age segmentation. So this is, we break down your programs, what's offered for each age. So you can see youth is 6 to 12, teens is 13 to 17, adults is 18 to 54, and active adults is 55 plus, and early childhood 0 to 5. So 40% of the programs that are created that require registration are for youth, 33 for teen, 21% for early childhood, and then you can see the active adult and adult at 3%. And when you compare this to your population, so almost 25% of the population is youth, but 94% of the programs are designed for youth. And then on the adult side, almost 42% of the population is made up of adults, but only 6% of the programs. And if you recall to the survey responses, the top type of program that people were looking for the department to provide more of was senior programs. So that certainly lines up with this piece of information. So this slide, a little bit hard to read. However, each dot on the map is a household that participated in a program during 2022. And if a family signed up one child for 6 programs, they still only get 1 dot. This is household reach. So how many households are participating in programs and where do they live? And there's a circle that you can't see very, very well, but we were trying to look for where are areas that are being missed, where are there pockets of residents who are not participating as much in programs. And on this next slide, the lighter color blue are the areas where the household income is the lowest. And you can see on the side-by-side map, the circle lines up with areas that have lower income. So what does that mean? It means staff need to be cognizant of the pricing of programs and how you're reaching people and what can you do to pull more people into programs who could benefit from them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa to talk about inventory.
Okay, so you recall from the survey, you had very high satisfaction, especially in the realm of parks. So whether we hear that an agency is at a 2 or a 5, we want to put eyes on your parks. And we have individuals who go out to all the parks and facilities across the country. And so they have a really good eye for scoring park components, if you will. And here in Owensboro, your scores are high. So there's a lot more to celebrate. So I want to share with you the inventory process, and then I'm going to go over your level of service. So how your outdoor recreation opportunities are serving your community. So with this process, we start by identifying all of the service providers within the Owensboro system. We recognize that those county parks, they also provide a service to your residents. So when we look at level of service, we want to factor them in. And in our mind, no two parks are alike. So it's not only that a park exists, we want to know what's in the park, and we want to know the condition of that amenity. So the first step is to develop a system map, and that's what you see here. So all of the parks and facilities listed were included in our analysis. So some general observations when the team was out in your system. So they saw a lot of consistent signage. That was wonderful. They saw some challenges with ADA accessibility. There aren't paths in all of your parks that would allow the park to be wheelchair accessible. They also saw some opportunities to implement standards for consistency, if you will. So identifying a typical type bench, a garbage can, there can be a cost savings in this in the long run. In addition to that, it's a form of branding, just like that signage that you've done. Another aspect to highlight is bleachers across the system are not to code, but we learned from Amanda that's on the radar, and that is going to take time to replace those bleachers, but it is in progress. So just some general observations here. So as I mentioned, we visited all of the parks, yours as well as the county, and as part of the process, we do some GIS mapping, and all of this data will be turned over to Amanda and her team. And so now you have a map of all of your parks as well as a report card. And so the report card identifies all of the usable amenities or components in the park, and it grades them. So all of your park components have been graded on a scale of 0 to 3. So if the item received a 0, it's a health and safety issue, and it should likely be removed. If it's a 1, it's reaching its end of life. If it's a 2, that's really what we want to see, right? It's well used, but it's safe. It's just not brand new. And then a 3 would be your brand new elements, probably installed in the last 12 to 24 months. So I have a slide missing here that I think so talking about component scoring, something to highlight that you don't see here, and I apologize for that, is you didn't have any zeros in your system. And a typical agency has 3 to 5% of zeros. We find things in the parks that really should be removed. There's an issue with it. You didn't have any zeros in your system. Your 1s were also very minimal, and then you were at 80% for your 2s. And that's something, again, I said, that 4.1, that your community satisfaction, it aligns with what we saw in your system. So this next aspect, I referenced the National Park and Recreation Association and the tracking that they do. They also track amenities, and they take a look at the population level, and they identify how many playgrounds are typical per capita for an agency. And so when we take a look at your component selection, you have, in most cases, exceeded that of other agencies, especially in the realm of diamond fields and rectangular fields. So for example, with those rectangular fields, we would typically see a field per 13,000, and you've got a field per 5,000. And so you've made some great component selections, and I think really had the pulse of what your community wants to see. And if we compare this to the survey, we don't see a demand for sports fields. So you've got a satisfied community, and we see you have more than typical size communities. And we don't ever recommend divesting from facilities because you have more. If they're used, that's what we want, right? So the only 3 areas where you were slightly below is playgrounds, pickleball courts, which we know that you're going to be addressing potentially in the future here, and then community gardens. That's something that's non-existent here in Owensboro, but it might not be something that your community is desiring. And so this is a great benchmark and comparative aspect, but we do rely heavily on the survey. What does the community actually want? So the next benchmark aspect is taking a look at park acres. So we find agencies of similar size typically have 11.2 acres per 1,000 individuals. Here in Owensboro, you've got 13.2. So you've got some excess acres there. So when you think about growth in the future, the next 5 years, you're projected to grow somewhere between 300 and 500. If you wanted to maintain your current level of service as 3.2 acres per 1,000, you would just need to add 3 acres. But if you didn't add anything, you would still be slightly above the national average. So the next aspect is level of service. So we've kind of we've identified you've got a strong number of park acres, strong number of parks. The next aspect is taking a look at where those parks are and what the access looks like. Is it consistent across Owensboro? So the first thing we do is we take a look at pedestrian boundaries. Pedestrian boundaries are, they cut off access, if you will. And so your highways, major thoroughfares, things of that nature. So that's everything you see there in purple. You might have a park right up against it, but there's only one side that can get to it. So we take all of these into account first, and we call it the 880 rule. If you wouldn't cross the thoroughfare, if you wouldn't allow your 8-year-old daughter or son or 80-year-old grandparent to cross that thoroughfare without you, then it's a pedestrian barrier. Okay, and so we want to account for that when we're looking at level of service. So the first aspect we look at is just general walkability. Who can reach a park within 10 minutes? And here the darker orange gradient means you have access to not only a park but more amenities. So that dark orange area near Smothers, someone can actually access over 50 amenities from that location within 10 minutes. So you have very high service in that area. Where you see gray, there's not service within 10 minutes. So if we take a step back and we say, okay, we not only want to have everyone have equal access to parks, but we want them to have equal access to a certain number of recreation components. What should that look like? No two parks are the same, right? So if we take a look at the number of components that you typically offer in your parks, we find that average is 4. So if we said, what would it look like if everybody had access to 4 things? So it could be in 1 park, it could be in 2 parks, and it could be any combination. So it could be a shelter, ball field, playground, and maybe access to a trail. All those outdoor recreation opportunities. What would that look like? And so that's where we continue with the mapping, and we start with this 10-minute walk time again. The National Park and Recreation Association really encourages cities to try to move towards this 10-minute walk time, but not all cities are designed in a way where this is really manageable, right? But this is where we start. So when we take a look at the areas of the community that are reaching that 4-component count, that's what you see in purple. So that's about 27% of your community. What you see there in yellow, they have access to some recreation components within 10 minutes, but not 4, okay? So we consider that low service. And then in gray, we have no service. So within 10 minutes, they don't have a recreation option. So if we pull out a bit and we say, okay, looking at Owensboro and what we know, what is the right level of service? So if we zoom out and we say, how about we look at what does 1 mile and 4 components look like? How is our service there? Then you see that purple goes to 75%. So that's kind of where we're at today. So then we say, okay, how can we get the rest of the city to turn purple? And that's where that visioning aspect comes in. But this is step 1 in just identifying where your service is inconsistent and where we should focus the addition of park components or acquisition or even just partnerships. Partnering with a school to open up their playground after hours so that everyone across the community has consistent access. Okay. So with that, I would love to open it up to any questions the council might have. We threw a lot of information at you a little bit quick, but our intention here is really to set the stage. So when we come back and start talking about the implementation plan, you can kind of connect the dots as to why recommendations are put together like they are. You can hear, you have all of that info on the survey as well as our analysis up front.
Commissioner Neesmith.
I'd like to ask on surveys, one of the things, so were surveys sent out to individuals or targeted groups, or are your surveys from within your corporation or your organization?
Yeah, great question. So we used RRC, which is a firm that specializes in statistically valid surveys, and they do a random sampling. And that's what makes it statistically valid. And I think we had 284, something along those lines. And sometimes we'll get a question that says, well, you know, our population's over 50,000, that feels low. So in this case, we were shooting for 300. That was our start goal. How can we get to just a 5% margin of error? We got to a 6.9 margin of error, which is a healthy place to be. What that means is if you administered the survey 100 times, 94% you'd have the same results.
So the responses would be, typically you send out a survey to 100 people, you get 10 answers, it's a 10% response. So from a percentage standpoint, you're saying that we're in good shape as far as this being very good, valid feedback for us to work from.
Correct. And we sent out 6,000. That was our start point based on population.
Okay, so you sent out 6,000 surveys, and how many did you get back?
The 284.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Castle?
How, that 284, is that kind of how's that weigh out as far as averages across the country? Is that pretty much about a standard number, or is it high or low?
Oh, I'd say it's pretty typical. However, during the COVID years, we had a spike in surveys. People had more time. So we were getting 4% and 3% margin of errors. And the number is a factor, but it's really about that percentage. And so if we were still sitting at an 8% or 9% margin of error, we would have kept pushing out surveys. But when we get into that range of 7 or less, then you have high confidence in the survey.
So as far as all the information that you see on there, what would you personally say is the most concerning with our parks? I mean, I know we've got high ratings, but, as far as what you think we should probably address first.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I see it as concerning, but I would say that when we look out at what the possibilities are for the next 5 and 10 years, what we see your community saying is we want more connectivity, whether that's through the Greenbelt specifically or other trail opportunities. I think overall, we see that the community is pretty content with your current parks. However, that trail piece keeps raising to the top, whether we ask them about how they want to spend money or we ask them about importance, the trail piece keeps surfacing. And you do have a number of miles of trails in the system. So I just think that speaks to your community appreciates those, maybe more so since COVID, and they want to see that continue to grow.
So my question is sort of one you may not have assessed, and that is a lot of park systems are beginning to address climate change issues. And specifically, they're beginning to put coverings over the jungle gyms and play areas for kids, because this summer we had a record-setting summer across the nation. We were fortunate in Owensboro. We only got nailed 2 weeks of that cycle, but our time's coming. Is that something you're recommending park systems do in regard, putting a covering over that so the kids are less exposed directly to the sun, that kind of thing?
So it is a bit case by case, depending on what the needs of the system are and what the capacity of the CIP is. You have wonderful playgrounds. You have a playground replacement schedule in place. Not all agencies have that, and so they've got 7 they have to replace. You very likely are probably in a better position to say we can start adding those shelters. So it's kind of that balance when we get to the CIP portion of if it's starting to grow too large, it's not reasonable within the next 6 years. What is a priority and what isn't? And we haven't gone that deep quite yet, but we are making that recommendation more and more frequently. That and also turf reduction.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable talking about specific parks, or is that too broad?
If you had some you wanted to list
Well, I
today.
just think I noticed Mason Park is 3.9 miles and Kendall Perkins is 2.4, and Mason Park is a wasted resource. I have requested on numerous occasions that a playground be set up there. Parents across the street have asked, and nothing is happening. There's a bench and some trees, and that's it.
Okay.
And I certainly think, I know Amanda does a great job, her staff is awesome, but, and I know they have a lot of needs and not enough help, but to me, it just makes sense. That's a larger park. And we spent a lot of money on Moneta Sleep Park, which I think is awesome. But on the other hand, I think given where you're saying that area is underserved anyway, Mason Park could be an answer to that.
You see that as a solution. Okay.
And then the other question I've got is soccer. We have one facility, Thompson Berry. Was that something that may not even be a variable. Was that something you looked into?
Yes.
I mean, what
As
was
far
your
as
impression of
counting
that?
it, it scored as a typical 2. There wasn't anything that jumped out as being deficient there. I didn't do all the site visits. I've read the notes. Is there something in your mind where it's
Well, I just
lacking?
wondered,
or-
you know, so it's average. You'd say it's average, okay, that's fine, because Horse Fork is a county facility, and it's, you know, county's done quite a bit to try to upgrade that. Okay, and then the last question is, so what could we do to get more facilities for adults? Because it sounded to me like the biggest, most emphatic issue was, we've got lots of stuff for teens and kids, but nobody stops being a kid in terms of their need for activity and physical wellness just because they hit the magic age of 30. So what are you recommending to other cities that we might want to embrace in terms of addressing more facilities for adults? Pickleball, obviously, is the obvious answer, but I'm not going to play pickleball next week. So what's the solution for me?
Well, I think that trails have been the solution for a lot of communities because it appeals to all age groups, right? Those adults, those seniors, those with disabilities. It's useful for all. And in addition to that, things such as adult sports. We are honestly seeing a decline in adult sports numbers across the country. And so things like trails keep surfacing for communities. And so I think that is an opportunity, especially with completing that green belt piece.
Thank you, and thank you for all your great work and effort in doing this, and thanks to Amanda and her staff for commissioning and working with you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Did y'all look at our botanical gardens? Did I not see that on the thingamajig?
There was some scoring done for that. There were a couple of elements there that I recall scored lower that we're going to discuss more tomorrow.
Okay, I'd like to have that information whenever you get it. Also, when you're talking about our land usage, do they take into consideration just how limited land we have inside the city limits? Or they just say, you know, you got 19 square miles and you ought to be using 8.7 miles for this?
So, you know, I referenced acquisition in areas with low service. When you're built out, that's not typically an option for a community. Yeah, and so what are the opportunities with schools? Is there a partnership opportunity? Can you add a playground at an existing facility to increase service? And so a community like yours, there aren't a lot of opportunities for acquisition. And we recognize that. And with that low service and no service areas, we also will lay over population because we're not going to recommend that you add a facility or amenities in areas where only 10 residents live, right? I can tell you there's a portion of that south area where you have 1,100 residents, that's yellow. So that's an area where if you make a change there, it affects a lot of people versus an area that maybe has under 100.
Did you all evaluate the health park at all?
The health park.
It's an indoor facility.
Oh, we did not because
Okay.
it's a private facility.
Well, it's kind of private. Okay.
I do remember that coming up in engagement as
'Cause they
being
have
a
pool,
good
they have walking
opportunity.
track, They have a lot of stuff in there, and I'm more concerned about the cost and being able to maybe get the companies and to partner with it by getting this information about how much healthier their employees would be if they went to the health park and walked at lunch or whatever, like a lot of us do, you know, here at the city. So I just didn't know if that got into the numbers, the health park at all. It's a great facility. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, here we go to item 4C, electronic cigarettes and health impact. The famous Gary Hall and Clay Horton, Green River Health Department.
Hey, Mayor. Hi, I'm Clay Horton with Green River District Health Department, and thank you all for your time tonight. I know that vaping and electronic cigarettes have come up as a topic with the City Commission for going back for a couple of months now. I know, Mayor, you and I have spoken a few times. The City Manager and I have spoken a couple of times. And I know especially Commissioner Glenn has expressed some interest and concern on the topic. So at your invitation, we're here tonight to give you a brief presentation on what these things are, what the overall health effects are, just kind of give a high-level perspective on it, and then just let you know that the Health Department is here to support you all if you are looking at policy decisions that will better the community, that would have an impact on the adverse effects that we see from electronic cigarettes. We certainly want to support that. and providing information any way we can. So with that, I'm going to introduce Gary Hall. He's a health educator with the health department. He's a subject matter expert, and he's the one that's going to be able to answer all of your questions.
Great, welcome to the podium. And this, I put this kind of in context. This came about with the issue with the gambling and the smoking ban and all that stuff. So it all kind of folded in together, and I thought, what better way to explain this? Because they said, well, people out there doing this, and we consider that. So I appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you all very much for the invitation. I just want to share a quote that one of my college professors at Valdosta State University shared. He said, "An ounce of history is worth a pound of reasoning." And I always like that quote because you think about, going to a community and you really don't know that much about it. But if you look at the history of that community, then you start to understand the reality and what they're doing. It kind of works for churches, for families, for the history of a lot of things. And so when we think about the history of smoking, we remember many, many years ago, and I'm 64, when there was advertising on television. There was also, for my father's generation, proponents saying that smoking was healthy, and there were things about tobacco that gave you energy and things like that. When we started to see later that there were health-related problems with tobacco products, and later that we found out that they were addictive, then there were a lot of changes, especially with secondhand smoke and things like that. When it comes to e-cigarettes, working in prevention for many, many years, I remember when they started to come out in the around 2007 in the United States. A lot of people ask us in substance abuse prevention and health education, they said, what's your opinion? What's the health department? What's the different opinions that people have on e-cigarettes? And we said, we're not really sure because we don't have the data. We don't have the information yet. And we don't really know that much about them. What was purported by those who manufactured and sold e-cigarettes was this is a safer cigarette. In other words, harm reduction. It's less harmful. In fact, it may be beneficial to individuals who are wanting to quit smoking. And if you go to any or many of the places where they do sell vape products, e-cigarettes and things like that, you'll have individuals say, yeah, that's one of the benefits. E-cigarettes are safer than using combustible tobacco products. Another thing that people said is that it was a tool to help individuals go from using combustible tobacco products to go to e-cigarettes would help them to quit smoking. So those were the two things that people started to view. But when we start looking at e-cigarettes, we start now to have more and more data and information about what they are.
Could I ask you just one
Yes.
quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you tell us, you're going to tell us what an e-cigarette is?
Yes.
Okay, and then vaping, so we can kind of separate those two.
Okay. Vaping, basically when we think about vape pods and e-cigarettes are kind of like the original, and we'll go ahead and show you one of the original types of electronic cigarettes. The components that it had would be a battery, microprocessor, atomizer, a heater, and then also a cartridge tank and a mouthpiece. And these were things you could take apart. You could recharge the battery. You could refill the tank with what users often call e-juice. And so they would fill these, and so they could maintain them. But later, pods, usually we think of the Juul pod, and then later there's other products that are like that. It's an all-in-one unit, and also they're disposable. E-cigarettes traditionally were not considered a disposable product, and so that's why we think about, vaping, and you vape for both of them. That's basically kind of the slang term, but a vape pod is a little bit different in the sense that it is disposable versus an e-cigarette that may be reused and recycled and recharged. When we look at the parts of the cigarette here, some people know that this is like the older versions. Also, the e-cigarettes have changed over the years, and the things that they've changed over the years is that they have become smaller, they've become disposable, And also we're going to talk about the amount of nicotine that's in these products versus what it used to be. What makes why we call it aerosol instead of vaping is that, you know, if you saw your very first e-cigarette being used, you saw a huge plume of this, it looked like vapor. And I thought of it as like, you know, steam coming from a boiling kettle. Actually, it's aerosol. And it's not vapor like water vapor. And there's a lot of people who use e-cigarettes and they think what they're releasing or exhaling is water vapor, but actually it's aerosol. That's the highly heated e-juice, and then it goes into the lungs, including the nicotine and all these other chemicals, and then they release it. And of course our lungs absorb. They absorb the oxygen, and so we can get into our bloodstreams. And of course it's a very quick way to get from the bloodstream, from the lungs, to the heart and to the brain very quickly. The e-cigarette aerosol is one that we see that individuals use, and then it just basically is a byproduct. And so this byproduct is what we look at as what has been exposed inside the lungs, and also those chemicals can change once they're heated. And once those byproducts are heated to a high temperature, they can even change into other chemicals, may make it more injurious to the health. Now, a lot of times we think that e-cigarettes are managed by the FDA. The Food and Drug Administration manages cigarettes, and they oversee cigarette manufacturing. And so if you look on the screen here, you'll see that there's 20 cigarettes, and each one has around 1 milligram of nicotine. Then you look at a pod like a Juul, and it had around 37 cigarettes in the tank for this. If you look at the Flume Float, it has 363 cigarettes because of the high amount of 400 milligrams of nicotine. And then the Elf Bar has 590 cigarettes. Now, the consumption would make you think that if an individual had an Elf Bar with that many cigarettes, that it would take them days and days and days for them to use it. Like if an individual says, I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, that's 20 milligrams of nicotine a day. 2 packs would be 40 milligrams. But something like the Elf Bar, there's kind of no limit to how much a person could ingest, and we're finding that a lot of individuals may be taking in more nicotine than they would if they were using combustible cigarettes. Nicotine in the brain, of course, is just like other substances that have an addictive nature. Typically, drugs like tobacco and methamphetamine, cocaine, caffeine, other drugs like that stimulate the brain and cause endorphins to be released. Dopamine is released, and when that dopamine is released, then it's a pleasurable feeling. And so these individuals that use nicotine, oftentimes they feel pleasure, they feel good, they feel relaxed. And so when this withdrawal occurs, when there's not a lot of nicotine in the brain, and of course, like my World War II uncles used to say, is I had a nicotine fit, and they had to go out and have a cigarette, or they would smoke at their homes. And so they would light up a cigarette to satiate that need for the nicotine in their brain. Nicotine also targets other parts of the body, and as we start to look at those, we can see that they target different parts of the body. The brain, of course, also the heart beats faster. The salt-based nicotine from the Juuls and the Puff Bars and the newer synthetic nicotines that are being used actually cause the heart to beat faster than traditional smoking or even traditional tobacco-based nicotine e-juice. Another thing that we see is, of course, coughing, heartburn is typical of nicotine use as well. Another thing that you'll even see people that, if you go on the web and say, how do I work with my vape tongue? A lot of people have vape tongue, and that is basically individuals who are using the same flavor. They're oftentimes the high heat from the e-cigarette starts to leave marks or burns on the tongues. It's a lack of hydration and also daily use. And they will give them a cure And a lot of these places are places that sell vape products, and they say this is how to treat your vape tongue. Other physical injuries could be like, patients who may smoke and they switch over to vaping. They may not realize that vaping causes the high amount of nicotine causes their gums to recede, and then they get thirsty because of the high amount of nicotine, and they drink sugary drinks or colas or other things like that, power drinks, and they start to have tooth decay and gum disease from that as well. Another thing that we see, of course, is just things like bronchitis, emphysema, heart attacks, lifelong addiction, and of course the unknown. When the pandemic first hit, we thought, well, will individuals who smoke and also vape or vape uniquely, will they be at greater risk for contracting the virus, or even if they do contract the virus, since it was so easily catchable, would it be something that could affect their health? And basically, we kind of held our information in response because we didn't want to be wrong, and we just waited till the data showed us differently. And of course, they did have more problems with that on recovery. Another thing that we see that is concerned is, of course, CBD and vaping. A lot of people see that hemp is legal, and because now you'll go to a lot of these local stores and they say we now have Delta 9, or we have Delta 6, or Delta 0, or we have CBD, and also they have these in the forms of vapes as well. And of course, there's concerns about that, and also concerns about the CBD can turn into the THC at a very small amount, but it can kind of get an individual oriented towards marijuana use. And so we take something that's legal and it turns it into something that is currently illegal as well. Now, some of the things that we see with marijuana is that in states where legal sales of marijuana for recreational purposes or even for medical marijuana, that a lot of those individuals, this is the way that they use as the transmission tool and for them to get their marijuana. And so this, if the state of Kentucky passes more laws related to medical marijuana and things like that, it's going to be problematic for our cities because individuals may be vaping using an e-pod with THC in it, and individuals say, please don't do that there. And they go, well, it's my right. I'm a patient. This is my medicine. I'm taking my medicine. And that may be problematic as well. When we think about the e-cigarettes, they're also not approved for cessation. The United Kingdom, they literally have regulated e-cigarettes, and they have defined how much nicotine can be in those cigarettes. And if they are used, they have certain types of cigarettes that go less and less and less with nicotine in those cigarettes. In the United States, we don't have that. There's no regulations. So we really don't know what these products have in them because they're not FDA regulated, and also they provide usually more nicotine to a person that's trying to quit smoking than if they were using traditional cigarettes. Now, some of the products that we see have really changed in shape and in their dynamics. Things like a Geek Bar. Also, we see that there's pods like the Juuls and others. They use synthetic salts. This one here is one that's popular, Puff Bar, because it's not very expensive. Ones that we see where they're disposable, they're easy to use, they're already charged. Also, they are fruit flavored, has a tendency to be marketed towards younger set of people. Also, we see things like Mr. Fogg. This is one that I was in Ohio County schools, and they said it seems to be the popular one for the high school students to bring to school because it's very, very inexpensive, and it was available there in Hartford and in Beaver Dam for the kids to buy. Also, they come in other shapes as well. and they have high amount of nicotine. Here's some that look like Cokes with or soft drinks. Others look like they would be for an individual with asthma, so they may be a breathalyzer. Others, like the one on the very bottom, if a principal or a parent looked at that in the bottom of their daughter's purse, they may think that it's just makeup that they have. They would not realize that's a vape. Also, they even have sell vapes that look like highlighters. And so they can take a vape and it looks like a highlighter and bring that to school, and the faculty and staff are none the wiser. And even vapes can be hidden inside hoodies through the drawstring as well. All kinds of flavors are out there. Most of these are the ones, like you said, that appeal towards the younger population, not the older population. Originally, vapes were tobacco flavored. If they were today tobacco flavored, there wouldn't be a lot of young people being attracted to it just because it wouldn't be that attractive to them with the flavor. Also, vape for beginners. There's videos out there. There's YouTube, social influencers that use vapes. They even show them how to make the different swirls with their vaping products as well. And also, because of the batteries are lithium, they can be explosive. There's a number of cases where people have been injured by these through explosions, and this young man had one he actually swallowed. Or the vape that the battery catches on fire in their pants, it burns a hole, goes down their leg and explodes. All these can be physically injurious as well. The takeaway is, of course, that they're not safe or healthy from what we know now and what we've learned. And also they can release harmful chemicals in the air, and it's called aerosol, not water vapor. And also tobacco companies are using these flavors and colors and anything that may be cool or attractive to attract the younger set of people. Traditional smoking has declined over the years, and we now see where young people who are vaping as their way to get nicotine as their product of choice over cigarettes. Any questions on this so far? Where can people find help? There's a number of places for free supportive help. The Kentucky Quit Now also talks to individuals for tobacco smoking, and also for vaping is called My Life, My Quit. These are free services. They provide nicotine replacement. Also in Owensboro, Kentucky, Owensboro Health has tobacco-trained specialists, and they provide free tobacco treatment for individuals. Also, NRT, they give them support as well. And so there's a lot of support out there. Our health department, anybody that ever want to call us and ask questions for how to help their son or daughter quit, we can certainly provide those resources to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. It's a tremendous amount of information to try and unpack, that's for sure. Thank you for the folder there. And does anybody have any questions? We appreciate that. Mr. Horton, could you just mind to step to the podium again and talk about this new strain that's floating around, please?
COVID-19,
Yeah.
is that the question? Well, so I appreciate the opportunity, Mayor. We are coming into respiratory illness season, so we're worried about not only COVID-19, but flu, RSV. And so, we saw through August and September kind of a rise in our respiratory illness rates in Owensboro and Davis County and in Western Kentucky, really the nation as a large. Thankfully, we've seen those decline the last few weeks. But it is the right time of year to update your vaccines. So if you haven't done so already, please get a flu shot. That's what we say every October about this time of year, to make sure that you're getting a current flu shot. And there are updated COVID-19 vaccines out as well. So those are targeted for, based on the Omicron strains, the strains that we are seeing circulating in our community now are descendants of that. And the current vaccine is effective in reducing your chances of catching COVID-19. But more importantly, they reduce the severe outcomes. So you're much more likely to to recover and to have a less harmful experience if you do become infected with COVID-19. And then this year, which is kind of new, we've got a RSV vaccine that's now available. So especially for folks that with new babies and then the older population, and we provide these vaccines at the health department, but they're widely available within our communities. They're available at all of our pharmacies, most of our primary care facilities, our health centers like Audubon's Community Health Center. If you go to vaccines.gov, type in your zip code, check off what you're looking for, and you'll find a list of providers where those will be available.
Great information. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you all.
Thank you. Okay. Man, the capitalistic society has taken over the vaping industry, hasn't it? All right, next item on the agenda is leaf season. We get to hear, is this the first time for you, Hunter?
No, this is the second time.
Second time, all right.
Wayfinding sign recently.
Was the beard the first time too? Did you have that then?
What's that?
Did you have the beard?
No,
then?
I
All right, I'm part of that older population he's talking about out there.
Yeah.
Welcome.
It might have been a little shorter then. Well, good evening. My name's Hunter Reagan. I'm the City of Owensboro Sanitation Manager for Owensboro Public Works. It's located at 1410 West 5th Street. Tonight I'll be discussing the ongoing leaf season. It started Monday, October 16th, and will be going until Wednesday, February 15th of 2024. This year we'll be starting in Zone 1A. The zone runs from 1st to 2nd Street and Fredica to Hanning Lane. During the leaf season, we'll complete 3 passes, which consist of 10 zones per pass. Our target dates are as so. On the first pass, we'll go from October 16th to November the 11th. The second pass will be November the 9th to December the 14th, and the third pass is December the 15th to February 15th. This will include all call-ins at the conclusion of the third pass. The 3 methods of disposal is 6 trucks with vacuums attached, operating 3 men per truck, 1 driver, 1 person running the vacuum, and another raking leaves. All trucks operate in the same zone until complete, then they will proceed to the next zone. The second option is bagged leaf collection. Residents can place the bagged leaves at the back of the curb, and 2 trucks running with 2 men per truck will collect the bagged leaves on their scheduled trash day. The third option is bagged leaf drop-off. We will have 6 orange dumpsters located at the Owensboro Sports Center parking lot for residents to drop off. Some of the way we bring awareness to the community is by updating the city website daily. Updates can also be found via owensboro.org, Facebook, the Messenger Inquirer, and the Owensboro Times, WBKR, and WBIO. In addition, the residents may sign up for text notifications by visiting owensboro.org and choosing the option for city text alerts. How can residents help? If there's cars parked, we ask that you don't block the leaf piles. Give 10 feet between any permanent objects. Do not mix brush with leaves or any other foreign objects. Don't wet the leaves, and don't cover leaves in the mobile cart. And in addition, if there's any lids, like where your water jar is going to be, don't put the leaves over that, as the vacuum machines can suck the lids off the water jars. And then for residents who are looking for information, we advise you to check for your OMU mail inserts, leaf season press release, and newspaper updates, and the city website. The hours of operation will be Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 2:30, and Saturday 6 from 12. Extended hours are as needed. In conclusion, last year's leaf season, we collected 2,231,243 pounds, or 1,116 tons of leaves. The first pass was completed November 14th, the second pass was completed December 19th, and the third pass was completed January the 16th. This was with all call-ins completed by February 15th. Any questions?
Who decides the neighborhoods to get the 6 o'clock one?
It's just the luck of the draw on
I've
that.
gotten several calls on that. I just was curious. Who does that?
It's the luck of draw on that one.
Luck of the draw. All right,
Yeah.
so that's all I need to tell them. It's the luck of the draw. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Castleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I was thinking that with our noise ordinance, excuse me, we actually weren't supposed to start any loud noises till after 7 o'clock. And I know I've experienced the 6 o'clock end on this and had a guy in the past come up banging on my door saying, if you want your leaves picked up, you need to move your car. And I ended up walking out there in my house slippers, threw on a pair of shorts, and, you know, dead of winter, and moved my car, and I can tell you I wasn't very happy about it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But that's, and you weren't even in the picture,
Yeah.
man. But, you know, I see it's still the same scenario, and I think at 6 o'clock is a little too early. I think it ought to be moved back to 7, personally. But I don't know who makes that call, but 6 o'clock seems to me like it's pretty early, and 7 to 3:30 is not a bad work day either, you know?
Yeah, well, we'll review it, and I can get back with you on that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just know I've heard a lot of people voice that same
Yeah,
feelings about that.
I understand. We have our meeting at 6 a.m. every morning, of course, and then the guys, they'll go out to the truck, and then they'll have to do their walk-arounds, of course, and making sure that everything's there, pressuring tires, and that's usually, so we don't get out the door until a little after 6 on that, usually.
I'd rather them go at 6 rather than pay them overtime.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to take the same amount of time regardless, you know, but going in somebody's house up at 6:30 in the morning, banging on the door saying, move your car.
I understand.
Is, you know,
Yeah.
it's not a very pleasant feeling, and I've had it personally happen to me, and I know others that have also.
Slippers and shorts, huh?
You know, that's, so what do I do about your neighbor who lives right next door to you, and they come out at 5:30, 6 o'clock to smoke, and they go right outside your bedroom window?
That's not a city problem.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's still, everything doesn't work the way you want it to.
All right, let's keep track of it. Anybody else? Commissioner Glenn.
Do you have any new equipment this year or anything else to add to that? Because I know you've got a pretty good collection of it.
We are getting some new leaf vacuums. We have 2 new ones right now, and we're expecting 2 more to come, so. And we do have 4 F-650s as well that are pulling those machines.
Well, you all do a great job. I haven't been awoken to the point where I've had to run out in my shorts and slippers, so I'm good.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Fire Prevention Month. Fire Marshal Steve Leonard. Is he here? He's still with the fire department? 30-something, isn't it?
You're a little short.
A little short? 40-something then, I guess.
Battalion Chief Steve Leonard, Owensboro Fire Department. I serve as your city fire marshal. Chief Howard has asked me to come share with you our activities for Fire Prevention Month. It was the Congress put that together following the Great Chicago Fire in 1871 that you've read about. And no, I wasn't on the fire department then. I didn't fight that fire. But what that did was bring home to a lot of people the seriousness. When you have big events, we are a society in America that it's one of those, let's remember never to do that again. Just like if when do people start wearing their seatbelts? Once they've been involved in an accident, if they survive that accident, they think about that seatbelt and how important it is to wear that. And fire prevention is the same way. A lot of people see fire prevention as kid stuff. Fire doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter whether you're 9 months old or 99 years old. In this country, every year we lose about 4,000 people in fires. Now that is not a big number compared to some of the other ways people die. But if I give you a list of the ways to leave this world from 1 to 10, probably number 10, you put that fire down there way low. You would not want to die in a fire. We hear things like we don't have a lot of fires like we used to. Well, you know, a community our size does not have 200 or 300 fires every year. But if you have a fire in your home tonight and it takes your life or your family's life or your neighbor's lives, that is a very serious fire to you. And the numbers come from somewhere. The 4,000 numbers come from somewhere. We started a program. See if I can get a little We started a program, and by the way, Shaylee put these together for us. Since she has been here, our PSAs have been fantastic. Our community and our message to the community and fire safety and life safety has been tremendous. She did a great job with these, and she does a great job with everything that she touches that makes us get our message out there, and it's saving lives. So she is truly a lifesaver.
Shout out for Shaylee, all right.
We started a program about 25 years ago where we come up with the thought of, and we do a lot of different programs. How can we touch all of our kids in our community and teach exit drills in the home, teach fire safety, life safety in our community? And it's something that will stick with them, kind of like learning to ride a bike when you were small. You may wobble a little bit today if you haven't been on one in a while, but you can still ride that bike. It's still in there. You learned that as a kid. The same thing applies to life safety and fire safety. So we started a program where we would have every second grader or second grade age in our community go through our life safety training. And that has been 25 years in doing that. Imagine the amount of citizens in our community that have gone through that. And we hear today people 30 years old, 40 years old that have gone through that stuff when they were kids, and how they've used that, how they passed that on to their family and saved their lives. It, again, is truly not kid stuff. It's very serious, just like a lot of other types of incidents that you try to avoid and prepare for. So when we started that program, we started touching a lot of people, and we just finished that last week. And typically it's around 300 to 400 kids, a little less than that sometimes, that we involve in that training. They come to the fire, this year they came to the fire station because we're redoing our training center. But we had been using the training center, and what we teach them, again, is exit drills in the home. We teach them about smoke detectors. Smoke detectors truly save lives. Again, 88% of the fires that occur in this country are single-family dwellings, homes like yours and mine. Your home is your castle. Guys, we do some crazy things in our castles sometimes, and we have a lot of fires in those, and that's where most of our fire deaths occur, the place you feel the safest. So knowing what to do in that home fire is extremely important. Studies show, and this is coming from a firefighter who's been doing this a long time, if you're not out of a burning single-family dwelling in 2 to 4 minutes, you'll likely lose your life in that fire. You're not going to burn to death. You're going to die of smoke inhalation. I've dealt with over 60 fire deaths, just me in my career, in this small community of Owensboro. So it does take a lot of lives, and when you look at the amount of people that die in those fires, again, 99% of the fires that I've either fought or investigated were smoke inhalation fires. So that plan of action is extremely important, and smoke detectors truly save lives. You'll never catch me sleeping anywhere that there's not a smoke detector. If you come to my house, they're in every room other than the kitchen that will give you false alarms, and other than the bathroom because the steam sets the smoke detector off. So they truly save lives. Studies show that if you, again, are not out of that home in the first 2 to 4 minutes, you'll likely die in that fire. This is how important fire safety is. Let's look at the time factor. The average fire in this country is not called in for 7 to 10 minutes. 7 to 10 minutes. Let's figure the low side, 7 minutes. Somebody calls 911. Typically, who is that? It's not you, it's your neighbor or someone else. So 7 minutes, they dial 911. The national average response time is 3 to 5 minutes, anywhere in this country, to get to your house once that alarm is sounded. Let's figure the low side again, 3 minutes. So we're getting there, we're 10 minutes into this fire. Takes us about 2 minutes or less to stretch hose lines, put air packs on, go into your home to try to find you, and keep in mind, 3 minutes before that, we were at the fire station asleep. So to try to find you, we're 12 minutes into this fire. Remember what I said a while ago, 2 to 4 minutes if you're not out? Most people that die in fires die before those big red trucks ever pull out of the engine bay. How can the fireman save you, and how important is it that you have a plan of action in your home? That's why life safety education is so important. That's why we train these kids. That's why we talk to anybody in our community about fire and life safety, because we see what happens when you do not have a plan of action. So these kids go through that, and the kids that will go through it maybe the second or third year when we set the safety house up at one of the events around town, they remember that stuff, and it saves their lives. It keeps them safe. A community our size typically has, with the demographics and the way we're set up, typically has between 3 and 12 fire deaths every year. I'm always reluctant to say this because we could lose 20 people tonight in an apartment complex. But typically and historically, we do not have that amount of fire deaths because we are very aggressive with life safety education. Keep in mind that the average fire department, including ours, only spends about 5% of its budget to try to keep people from dying in fires. We spend the rest of that money reacting when you have a fire. Those big red trucks, $1 million trucks, those are the things we have to react. Makes a lot of good sense to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent, to prepare. And we do everything we can within our means to do that type of thing. So again, we go through the exit drills, smoke detectors, as I mentioned to you. If you've got one smoke detector, working smoke detector in your home, and notice I said working, what we find is about 40% of our smoke detectors don't work. Change your clock, change your battery, make sure that it works. So if you've got one smoke detector on every level, you've got a 50% chance for escape. If you've got one in every room, other than what I told you a while ago about the bathroom or the kitchen area, if you've got one in every room, you've got a 90% chance for escape. If you do not have smoke detectors in your home, there's a 90% chance that you will die in that fire. The dog is not going to wake you up. I could fill the bed of my pickup truck with dead dogs and cats that we pulled out of homes. They will not wake you up. You will not smell the smoke. Smoke is a sedative. It goes to the ceiling and starts banking down ever so slightly, ever so lightly, until it puts you asleep. Most of the people that I found that have died in fires either die in their bed or right beside their bed. They pop up out of the bed, they stand up in the thermal air, and they're out. So that smoke detector saves your life. What a cheap product to save your life. Unbelievable. We also started a program years ago. If you could not afford a smoke detector in the city of Owensboro, the fire department would give you a smoke detector. If you could not put the smoke detector up, we would put the smoke detector up for you. If you could not afford the battery for your smoke detector, we would bring you the battery for your smoke detector. That, as a city fire marshal, makes me rest a little easier at night, because I know that we're doing everything we possibly can to help you. So again, we educate your kids, we provide in-services throughout our community, we provide the smoke detectors. I remember when I proposed this to one of the older chiefs years and years ago. We've been doing the smoke detector program a long time. He said, you're going to break the budget. And really, most people can afford smoke detectors. They're $7 to $10 for a smoke detector. They're not expensive. So we really have not given that many away. Now, what we have done is we're coupling with the American Red Cross, and what we're doing is working together with them. And later this month, and in the next month, we're going to these areas that we've received a lot of fire calls in, and the demographics, the area, the community, part of the community that we need to address, and we're going to canvass those areas and offer people smoke detectors and make sure that they've got working smoke detectors there. Anybody in this community can call the fire department of the numbers and make sure that if you want a smoke detector, make sure that you have an engine company. Me personally, it doesn't matter. The chief will come out and do that. We want to make sure that our community is safe. So somebody's going to be at your home. If you cannot afford a smoke detector, putting that smoke detector up for you. What we try to do now is, for years we would give smoke detectors away, and then we would find sometimes they would never be put up. So there was a tragedy in Louisville with that. They give 5 smoke detectors to a family. 1 month later, they responded to a fully involved house. The parents worked at night, left the kids home at night, and it killed all the kids. The fire marshal there is a good friend of mine. He said we went in and we found all 5 smoke detectors still in the box on the mantle of the fireplace. They had not been installed. So we try to make sure we install those or make sure they're put in so that they work properly. So again, the number, if you know somebody that needs that smoke detector, we're there for you. We want to do that. That's one thing our community can do. It's very affordable. It's very reasonable. And guess what? That's our job, to save lives. And it's not always at the end of a hose line. This is the way our firefighters save lives on the other end. This is the best way to save lives, the fire that never occurs. Questions?
I never saw you look at a note. That's amazing.
It's here. It's in.
That's amazing. I have a proclamation I'd like to read for fire presenting, and then we'll come down and present it to you if you.
Yes, sir.
City of Owensboro proclamation. Whereas Owensboro is committed to ensuring the safety and security of those living in and visiting our city. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. Whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, and fire departments respond to more than 166,400 of them annually between 2016 and 2020. Whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires almost in half. Whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. Whereas the Owensboro Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection. Now, therefore, I, Thomas H. Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do here proclaim Owensboro October 2023 Fire Prevention Month in Owensboro, and urge all citizens to educate themselves on fire safety and prevention. So I'd like to present this to you.
Mayor, can I add one quick comment? Yes, you do, but I hope you'll opt for yes. I want to thank the department for coming yesterday when we had our alarm. We had Station 1 and Station 2 come by and check our alarm out, make sure we weren't on fire. I presume we weren't, because I saw them leave, but I appreciated the fact you got here so quick and went right to work. So God bless you for being there 24/7 for us.
Good. Okay, next item on the agenda, consider the approval of minutes from dated September 19th, 2023. I'll make a motion to approve these minutes. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any deletions or discussion or anything to add or delete? Please say now. Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 5B, consider these board appointments, please. Apollo Area Neighborhood Alliance, reappoint Bruce Hoop and Suzette Austin Maglinger to a 2-year term, effective October the 23rd, 2023, and reappoint Robert Shell to a 2-year term effective November 2nd, 2023. Dugan Best Neighborhood Alliance, appoint Lakeisha Hall, Jansen Harris, and Quentin Coleman to a 2-year term effective October the 17th, 2023. Human Relations Commission, appoint Nikki Ward to fill the remainder of an unexpired term, which ends April the 5th, 2025, replacing Terry Crow. Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission, appoint Mr. Bill Weichel, fill the remainder of an unexpired term, which ends January 1, 2024. And Owensboro Metropolitan Board of Adjustment, appoint Bill Weichel to fill the remainder of an unexpired term, January 1st, 2026, replacing Lorna Strail. Had a hard time finding somebody that wanted that load, so I appreciate you, Mr. Weichel. I'll make a motion to approve these appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 6, second reading, none. Item 7, first readings, none. Item 8, municipal order. Wake up, Nate. Item 8A, Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 38-2023, a municipal order authorizing the application for funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the total amount of $10 million to produce affordable housing rental units, read for approval on one reading the 17th day of October 2023.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City Manager, would you like to discuss?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I do have a brief explanation for you and the commission. So this municipal order authorizes a grant agreement for $10 million for affordable housing units. So obviously that is a sizable amount of funding. For this particular grant, however, the focus from the granting agency is to provide a large amount of funding to relatively fewer applicants or projects. If our application is approved and funded, we plan to issue a request for proposals for partners to co-develop affordable housing units in our community. We estimate a total project of approximately $13.5 million, with funds from the partner and the city home funds providing the balance of the project above the $10 million grant request.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8B, Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 39-2023, a municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with the United Way of the Ohio Valley, providing for investment in equitable distribution of funding received from the City of Owensboro to various health and human service agencies in the city and surrounding communities. Read for approval on one reading this 17th day of October, 2023.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this, please.
So moved.
Second, please. Second. City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Since 2008, the city has partnered with United Way to review and allocate funding we provide to local social service agencies. United Way has dedicated volunteers who evaluate agencies as part of their annual process. City staff does not have the time to provide such oversight to agency funding, so by partnering with United Way, it ensures tax dollars are used effectively and efficiently. This municipal order approves a new 5-year term to continue with United Way as we've done for these past 15 years.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the dais? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Davis, 8C.
Municipal Order 40-2023, a municipal order authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement between the City of Owensboro and Davis County Fiscal Court, equally dividing responsibility for payment of the $25,000 cost associated with retaining Carlton Hall Consulting, LLC, to facilitate a strategic planning process for the Owensboro-Davis County Steering Committee for a Drug and Alcohol Addiction-Free Community concerning opioid remediation. Read for approval on one reading this 17th day of October, 2023.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City Manager, you want me to discuss or you want to? Go ahead.
Well, I just would really reiterate what the city clerk said. We'd split the cost with the county. The total cost is $25,000, so it'd be $12,500 for each of the two partners. And this comes at the request of the Owensboro-Davis County Steering Committee for a drug and alcohol-free community. And so we are doing it at their request. Mayor, I know you're on that committee, so you're probably best positioned to make any additional comments.
Well, we needed a consultant to help do a strategic plan. Isn't that right, Commissioner Neesmith? Isn't that what we said? This was chosen by Dr. Figueroa, and so we felt like she knew best to do this. And I want to thank Judge Executive Caslin and Fiscal Court for actually partnering 50-50 with us on this project. It means a lot for our community. So, any other discussion? Do we vote now?
Yes, sir.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8C. Do I do that? City Manager items?
Yes, this afternoon we have a considerable number of personnel appointments. Michael Knight, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to maintenance equipment operator with the street department effective October 30th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. Victoria Pennington, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to transit manager with the Public Works Transit Department effective October 30th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. Abigail Mattingly and Victoria Whitmer, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointments to telecommunicator with the Police Department and Dispatch effective November 6th. Zachary Brown, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to refuse truck driver with Sanitation Department effective October 8th. Susan Frazier, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to bus driver dispatcher with Transit Department effective October 8th. David Mooneyhan, probationary full-time non-civil service promotional appointment to maintenance equipment operator with the street department effective October 22nd. Taylor Keener, probationary full-time non-civil service promotional appointment to telecommunicator with the police department effective November 19th. Matthew Brake, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to maintenance specialist with the buildings department effective October 3rd. John Smith, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to maintenance specialist with the buildings department October 3rd. Deanna Glover, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to accountant with the finance department effective October 10th. Steve Mentier, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to network systems engineer with the information technology department effective October 17th. Austin Esther and James Forker, regular full-time non-civil service appointments to police officer with the police department effective October 24th. And Shaylee Velez, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to communications and marketing manager with the administration department effective October 31st.
I make a motion to approve these appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9B, city manager comments.
The only other comment tonight is just to reference the project list. I know that was emailed to you last week. You have a hard copy in front of you as well, I believe. And so either I or staff would be happy to address any questions from the list you may have.
Any questions from the project list? Hearing none. Okay. Thank you, sir. Communication from elected officials. Commissioner Glenn.
Just want to say that the event we attended this morning announcing the Special Olympic softball tournament was a wonderful event. I know last week we had fall break. I'm glad to see everybody get back safe from that. And I just want to make one shout out to Shaylee. She's been here, I guess, over a year, just done a tremendous job. Added a tremendous amount of professionalism to our media and representative component. So appreciate her and appreciate all of our city staff.
Mr. Castleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I went to York Park the other day, kind of check on the flood control work, and the trees are being taken down in that area. It is changing the look of the park, but at the same time, it's for the better of the neighborhood. Also, I noticed that the antique mall was being torn down today, demolished for the Sportsplex. That's pretty exciting, and got to tear down before you can rebuild. Also, the River City Pickleball is having a big tournament on October 27th through the 29th, and they have over 316 people from 9 states that have signed up to play in that tournament. So want to tip my hat to them for bringing in, filling up our hotels and restaurants and bringing in a lot of out-of-state people for that. And they even invited me to play in it, so.
Shorts and slippers?
No, hey, I'll bring home the gold too, Mayor.
All right.
Trust me.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Yes, Mayor. I have something that I'm very proud of that I want to read. And it says, on behalf of the Veterans National Day Committee, I am pleased to announce that your site has been selected as a regional site for the 2023 Veterans Day commemoration. The official letters and certificate will reach you soon. However, in the interest of time and respect for planning that you must accomplish, I want to notify you in advance. This is from the Secretary of the National Veterans Outreach Office. And they also sent like a little certificate saying the Veterans Day National Committee hereby designates Owensboro Veterans Day Parade, Owensboro, Kentucky, as a regional site for the observance of Veterans Day 2023. Dennis McDougall, Secretary of Veterans Affairs.
Good deal. Is that it, ma'am?
Yes, that's it.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Thank you. I'd just like to take this time to share with you all an instance where we need to recognize, and we do recognize from here, how great all of our city employees are, but also how they can impact other things in the area. The Kentucky Mapping Association was in town for a convention this week. I learned a new word called confluence. And actually, no, if you don't know, because I didn't, that means where all the rivers meet when you have 2 or 3 rivers together. And so I was able to impress them with my knowledge and tell them about the confluence of barbecue, bourbon, and bluegrass. So that was exciting. But what was really more exciting was to talk to one of our city employees, and he shared with me how that for the city mapping and the Kentucky Mapping Association, it's where used to you had boots in the ground, you put a stake in the ground, and then you knew this is where this pipe was, type thing. Obviously, technology has changed all that, and so now with satellites and anyway, I understand that at some point in time in the sanitation department, we thought we were going to have to purchase 2 new trucks, which would be about a $600,000 expense. And by using the points from the mapping system that our information systems department here used, they were able to make new routes, and we did not have to purchase those 2. So it's just those little things that none of us really know about that individuals that work for us do every day. So I just want to give a big shout out from all of us.
Thank you very much. Okay. At this point, we'll go to open public forum. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Commission on any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to issues within the scope and responsibility of this commission. Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of Owensboro City residents and taxpayers. This time, anyone who wishes to address the City Commission, please make their way to the podium to be recognized. Speaker must state their name and address for the record and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Since the item is not on the agenda, no response is required. And the mayor reserves the right to cut him off if he wants to, or stand it. Anybody like to speak? About it, popcorn. Oh, come on. Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, Jim.